always thought heartbreak would come with a warning. Raised voices, drifting silences, maybe a fight that left you both too tired to try again. But mine came as a text message. 7 words on a screen that tore through 3 years of my life like they were nothing. I found someone else. I want nothing more to do with you. My name is Claire. I'm 31 years old. On the surface, I've built what looks like a steady, enviable life. I run a small logistics consulting firm, something I started in my mid-20s with nothing but an old laptop and more anxiety than I care to admit. I spent years clawing my way out of debt, surviving on instant noodles and sleepless nights, until finally 2 years ago, it all started to pay off. I landed contracts, built a client base, and for the first time I could breathe. I could live, and part of that life for the past 3 years was Kayla. When we met, she was 28, working as a receptionist, quietly dreaming of becoming a fine arts curator. She was vibrant, magnetic, the kind of woman who made you feel like your gray days suddenly had color again. I believed in her dream. I believed in her. So when my own business started to succeed, I told her to quit the job she hated, to study, to take the unpaid internships she couldn't have afforded before. I said, "I'll cover everything, we're a team." And I did. I paid for her rent in a chic downtown apartment, the lease on her Audi, that I co-signed, her wardrobe, her art supplies, her organic groceries. I gave her access to my cards, and I never checked the statements. My life was about managing every detail for other people, but with her, I just wanted to trust. Tuesday was our anniversary. I had reservations at a restaurant she'd been hinting at for months, and in my pocket was a sapphire necklace I thought she'd love. I came home early, rehearsing the moment in my head, imagining her smile. But the apartment was empty. At 7:15, my phone buzzed. It was her text. 7 words. No explanation, no goodbye. Just a cold erasure of everything we had built. For a long moment, I couldn't breathe. The silence around me was crushing. I thought of asking a dozen questions. Why, who, what did I do wrong? But then as I stared at her words, something else settled over me. Not panic, not tears. A cold, sharp clarity. She said she wanted nothing more to do with me. That was a line in the sand, and for once I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I typed 3 words back, "As you wish." Then something in me shifted. I wasn't her partner anymore. I wasn't her provider. I became what I knew best, a consultant solving a problem. And the problem was simple. A terminated non-binding arrangement. The solution: cut every tie. I opened my laptop and went through it all, methodical, detached. Her credit cards deactivated within minutes. The car lease, I canceled the automatic payments, knowing the next due date would expose the truth. The apartment, I triggered the break clause, paid the penalty, and sent the email. Subscriptions, phone lines, streaming services, I cut each one off, like snipping the strings of a puppet. 45 minutes later, she was no longer tethered to me in any way. When I closed the laptop, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't even feel angry. I just felt empty, as if I had finally admitted to myself that the life we had shared had been built on sand. I packed a small overnight bag, left the necklace on the kitchen counter, and went to stay with my brother. I didn't want to be there when she came back for her things. I didn't want to hear her excuses or her spin on the story. And for a few days, there was only silence. Until Friday. That's when the texts began. Pleading, then confused, then angry. I didn't reply. And then came the email from a lawyer. The subject line was urgent regarding Kayla Vance. He accused me of malicious cessation of financial support. 3 days after she told me she wanted nothing more to do with me, her attorney was demanding I continue to fund her life. That was the moment I realized this wasn't heartbreak. This was war. The first time I stepped into my lawyer's office with Kayla's letter in my hand, I felt like I was watching my own life from a distance. It was surreal, 3 years together, and this was how it ended, with a demand for continued payment, as if love had been nothing more than a contract I had foolishly signed without reading the fine print. My lawyer, a woman named Denise, read the letter twice. Then she set it down and looked at me with a kind of steady calm that made me breathe again. "Claire," she said, "this isn't about love anymore. This is about control. And control can be taken back. Her words burned into me. Control. That's what I had handed Kayla piece by piece, thinking it was love. I thought providing for her was partnership, that sacrifice was devotion. But in reality, I had built her a throne and placed myself at her feet. And now she thought she could turn that into leverage. We filed a response within the week. Denise was brutal in her precision. She outlined the timeline Kayla ended the relationship via text. She explicitly said she wanted nothing more to do with me, and I simply complied with her stated wishes. Every dollar I had given her was a gift during the relationship, not an obligation after. It was a clean break no matter how she tried to twist it. The backlash, though, was immediate. Kayla's sister plastered my name across social media, calling me a narcissist, a financial abuser, someone who had weaponized money against a vulnerable woman. Old friends reached out with cautious messages. "Hey, I saw some things online. Are you okay?" Their tone balanced between concern and suspicion. Every post, every whisper, every half-truth was another cut. And yet I stayed silent. I stayed silent because Denise told me to, and because deep down I knew silence was the sharpest blade of all. Kayla wanted chaos, a storm she could play the victim in. She wanted me to scream, to defend myself, to fuel her narrative, but I didn't. I just waited. And then the storm shifted. It started with the Audi. The lease payment bounced, and the repo company showed up 2 weeks later to haul the car away in broad daylight. Kayla stood in the street screaming, her neighbors filming the scene on their phones. Someone sent me the video. It spread faster than her sister's hashtags ever had. For the first time, I didn't feel empty. I felt something small but undeniable: vindication. Next came the apartment. Without my payments, the rent lapsed. Her landlord served her notice, and within a month she was gone. The chic apartment she had once bragged about on Instagram was stripped bare, her plants wilted in the trash, her designer clothes stuffed into garbage bags. Again, I didn't gloat. I just watched from a distance, as the life she built on my shoulders collapsed under its own weight. But Kayla wasn't done fighting. She filed a claim in small claims court, insisting I had promised lifelong support. Denise and I walked into that courtroom armed with her text message enlarged on a projector. "I found someone else. I want nothing more to do with you." The judge didn't need more than 10 minutes. Claim dismissed. That should have been the end. But betrayal has a way of leaving behind echoes. Even after the legal battles were over, I still carried the weight: the sleepless nights, the doubts about my own worth, the gnawing question of how I had missed the signs. It was during one of those sleepless nights that I found the sapphire necklace again, still in its velvet box, where I had left it on the counter. I opened it, ran my fingers over the cool stone, and for the first time, I didn't feel bitterness. I felt closure. That necklace wasn't hers anymore. It was mine, a reminder of the night my heart broke, and the night I chose to rise from the wreckage. Still, closure doesn't erase the scars. Kayla's betrayal taught me that love can be a mask, that devotion can be exploited, that trust can be weaponized. And yet it also taught me something else: that strength isn't loud or explosive. Sometimes strength is quiet. It's a calm, as you wish, instead of a desperate plea. It's reclaiming control, one click, one cancellation, one boundary at a time. I didn't win because I destroyed her life. I won because I rebuilt mine. The months after court felt like walking through ruins. My life was technically intact. My business was steady. My apartment was quiet. My bank account finally mine again. But emotionally, I was still living in the aftermath of a storm. Betrayal has a way of echoing even when the source is gone. I would wake up at 3 a.m., my chest tight, replaying her words: "I found someone else. I want nothing more to do with you." They weren't just a breakup. They were an erasure. A declaration that 3 years of love, laughter, sacrifice had meant absolutely nothing. I started therapy. At first I hated it. Sitting across from someone and peeling back the layers of my pain felt like admitting weakness. But over time I began to realize it wasn't weakness at all. It was honesty, the kind I had denied myself while I was with Kayla. I had buried my own needs under hers, thinking love meant giving, until there was nothing left. My therapist asked me a question that shook me. When did you stop being the main character in your own story? I couldn't answer, but I knew the moment I needed to start again. Kayla, meanwhile, wasn't silent. Every few weeks I'd hear of another post, another subtle jab online framing herself as the woman abandoned by a cruel ex, but each time her voice carried less weight. People had seen the car repossession, they had seen the eviction, they had seen the mask crack. Her narrative didn't hold anymore. And in that vacuum I found peace. One evening months later I went out for dinner with old friends I hadn't seen since before the breakup. I was nervous walking in, worried I'd see the pity in their eyes. But instead I saw warmth. They hugged me tighter than I expected, laughed with me louder than I remembered. At one point one of them leaned across the table and said, "You look lighter, Claire. Like yourself again." And it hit me. I was hit. I wasn't healed. Not completely. Scars don't fade that fast. But I was no longer defined by her betrayal. I was defined by the choice I made in its aftermath to reclaim myself, instead of chasing what was lost. That night when I went home, I opened my laptop and looked at the spreadsheet I had once used to track Kayla's expenses. For months it had felt like a chain proof of my own foolishness. But this time I saw it differently. It wasn't a record of loss. It was a map of survival. Every cancelled payment, every line item reclaimed, was a step back to myself. And then came the letter. A handwritten note slipped under my office door. I knew the handwriting instantly. Kayla. My hands shook as I opened it, half expecting venom, half expecting apologies. It was neither. Just 5 words: "You'll regret this forever." I laughed. Not bitterly, not angrily. Just softly. Because she was wrong. I didn't regret leaving. I didn't regret fighting back. The only regret I had was not seeing through her sooner. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer with the necklace, and locked it away, not out of fear, but out of finality. It was a chapter closed, a reminder I no longer needed. Life has been quieter since then, not empty quiet. And in that quiet I've rediscovered myself. I paint again, colors swirling on canvas like they hadn't in years. I take weekend trips alone, wandering through markets, reading in small cafes, letting the world move around me without demanding I hold it up. And slowly, piece by piece, I've started to believe in love again. Not the kind that demands, not the kind that drains, but the kind that feels like freedom. Betrayal didn't break me. It rebuilt me. It showed me that strength can be found in silence, in boundaries, in the refusal to be erased. And maybe that's the truest revenge, not her downfall, but my rise. It was almost a year later when I finally felt the shift inside me, the moment where betrayal no longer defined me, but became just a story I carried. By then I had rebuilt enough pieces of my life to stand taller. I had boundaries where there used to be cracks, confidence where there used to be doubt. And most importantly, I had peace. The world, though, has a strange way of testing that peace. One afternoon as I was leaving the grocery store with my arms full of sunflowers and fresh bread, I saw her. Kayla. She was standing by the parking lot, her hair pulled into a messy knot, her phone pressed to her ear. She looked smaller somehow. Tired. Worn down. For a moment my chest tightened with the old ache, the memory of her laughter in my apartment, the way she used to curl against me on rainy mornings. But then her voice carried over the wind, sharp, desperate, angry. She was arguing with someone. I didn't stay to hear the words. I didn't need to. Our eyes met briefly. Just a flicker. No smiles, no tears, no explosion. Just recognition of what was and what could never be again. I walked past her, sunflowers brushing against my cheek, and for the first time I didn't feel anger or grief. I felt free. That night, sitting on my balcony with the city lights glowing below, I thought about the woman I had been. The one who had answered her text with "as you wish," and then quietly dismantled an entire life built on lies. That woman was still me. Stronger, wiser, unapologetically mine. I realized something then: revenge had never been about destroying Kayla. It had been about reclaiming myself. Cutting her off financially, legally, emotionally wasn't just retaliation, it was resurrection. She had wanted me to keep funding her life even after she erased me from hers. But I chose to fund something else instead, my own future. And if you're watching this, maybe you've been where I was, left with nothing but silence, betrayal, and the urge to fight back. Maybe you felt like your worth was tied to what you could give rather than who you are. If that's you, let my story be your reminder. You can walk away, you can cut the strings, and you can rise from the wreckage stronger than you ever imagined. Kayla's last attempts to haunt me came in that note, "You'll regret this forever." But regret is the one thing I don't carry, because regret belongs to her. Regret is hers every time she remembers what she lost, every time she realizes she traded real love for temporary gain. Me, I carry something different. I carry freedom. I carry the lesson that love should never feel like debt, and that silence can be the sharpest form of power. So here I am, scars and all, telling you this story, not because I'm broken, but because I survived. And because maybe you need to hear it to know that survival is possible, that betrayal doesn't get the final word. If this story touched you, if it reminded you of your own strength, please like this video, share it with someone who might need it, and subscribe for more stories of resilience and truth. And if you've ever faced a betrayal that nearly broke you, leave a comment below. I'd love to hear how you found your way through.